Welcome. Hello, hello. Welcome to our Power of Community presentation in AMA. I'm Amy Jo Kim, the co-creator of the Game Thinking Academy. That you're here with us today. A few housekeeping things. Please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel because this chat today is limited to subscribers. So aren't already subscribed, make sure you go ahead and subscribe, and then you'll be able to participate with us. The other thing I want you to do is take a moment and say hello to us in the chat. Please type in your name and tell me where you're logging in from. I would love to get to know you a little bit. So, where are you logging in from? Name. I cannot turn on the video or it'll confuse me, but go ahead and tell me where you look. Scott, if you could let me know in the Riverside chat, please, that would be great. So as we're all doing that, I'm going to get started with a presentation about the power of community. Now, some of you know me from my community building book and from all the work I've done with community architecture and community design. Some of you just know me from game thinking. But what you may not know is that every hit I've ever worked on, The Sims, Rock Band, Covet Fashion, Ultima Online, and many more, those all were powered by insights from a pre-launch community. Every of those hits started by getting into a feedback loop with a small group of just the right people. This is a very common tactic these days. It might seem like everybody's doing a community, but today I want to show you some of the magic that a pre-launch community can bring to your project and give you an actionable set of tips that you can take home and start to use right away. So I'm going to go ahead now and share my screen and show you a little bit about the power of community. So first of all, I want to know, has anyone who's listening here ever built your own community? Have you ever built a community for a product, for a game you were working on, maybe just for your own hobbies? If you've ever built a community, type it into the chat. Tell me yes. Tell me what platform you used to build your community. I'd really like to know. I have built many communities on WhatsApp, on Discord, on Facebook, using Slack, using Mighty Networks, using message boards. There's no one right platform for building a community. It really comes where people hang out. You could even build a community on YouTube, which is what we're doing here right now. So what is going on these days? Why does it seem like everybody and their brother is building a community, especially in crypto, but really all over tech? We're seeing this more and more. You seeing it too in my world? Every week, my inbox is stuffed with requests from founders who want help figuring out how to build a strong community, and even more crucially, how to keep. So what's going on here? Well, I see three main trends that are driving this change. These trends are also changing the way that we work and play and socialize online. And you're all feeling it just as much as I am. The first trend, we're soaking in it, is pandemic-fueled online socializing. The pandemic drove us online. The pandemic is happening, the virus is mutating. Yes, things are opening up. Yes, we're starting to travel again, but our behavior in connecting with people online, and connecting remotely and giving a remote talk when we need to. All that behavior changed during the pandemic, and it shows no signs of going back. In fact, I would say that remote socializing, remote conferences, remote work is, and that's a huge global trend that we've seen. And that's one of the reasons that we're drawn to online communities. Now, what goes along with that trend is an explosion in the creator economy, in online creators who want to make a living online. It starts by, you hang out with friends. Then many of us have been working remotely, working online for the last few years. And it's a natural extension to start to make a living online, whether it's through YouTube or TikTok or any social media, or offering online courses such as we do, or online coaching and hands-on support, which is something that we also do. Many people have decided that they want to make their living online and that they want to create content, knowledge, all kinds of value for others. And this, again, is one of the trends that's really driving people to want to be part of a community. Communities form around online content creators. Have you ever seen that? Are you maybe part of a community that's formed around an online content creator that you really like? Who is it? What content creators do you enjoy? Have you been following? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear that. I know for myself, I'm part of a gaming community, mostly on Discord, that were formed around famous game designers who we all wanted to learn from. And those have been some of the most gratifying communities I've ever been part of. And our own community, the Game Thinking Hub, which I know many of you are part of, some of you aren't, is also a place that's seen a dramatic rise in engagement during the pandemic. People really want not just to connect, but they want to learn how to do that themselves. The third trend that's driving this is people getting more and more invested in their online communities. And investment drives evangelism. There's a saying that if you want to create an army of evangelists, create make a thriving pre-launch community, a thriving beta community. We did that on The Sims, we did that on and we did that on Covet Fashion. It's a huge benefit to any creator who wants people to actually feel engaged. So the people in your community, they don't just have to be members. They can be collaborators. I'll show you more about that, what a pre-launch enthusiast collaboration looks like. Those of you who have ever launched a game or product, you know that the feedback you get from your best customers before you launch is some of the most crucial feedback. And if you show them that you're listening and that you care, they will turn into evangelists for your product. We also see this drive of investment creating evangelism in crypto and all the areas around crypto. You see people being owners. They feel that they're not just members of the community, they all own it. A DAO is a good example to that. Token gated chat channels is another good example of that. And there's been just an explosion of this over the last year or so. Now, as you probably know, the trick isn't just getting people in that community, it's keeping them engaged much harder. And I'll bet some of you have struggled with that. I know I have. Nonetheless, the promise of not just being a member, but membership, that you help to create something and that you will share it, is a huge driver that has made a lot of regular people a lot more interested in communities. So as I mentioned earlier, the teams that produce hits often leverage those pre-launch communities. All the teams I've ever worked with that have actually had a hit did that. It doesn't mean that if you leverage a pre-launch community, you're guaranteed to have a hit. A lot has to go right. You have to have a crack team. You have to have great marketing. You have to have enough funding, all of that. But this crucial piece of the puzzle can make the difference between a great product, and a hit. And one of the reasons is that those pre-launch communities are a place where you can get collaborative work done. Now, that collaborative work can be heavy lifting, like these people here putting together a house, the frame house. The collaborative work can be a DAO that has people do work and compensates them. The collaborative work can take many forms. But one of the most accessible forms that every one of you listening can take advantage of if you're building a product, game, or service is to have that collaborative work in your pre-launch community come in the form of customer feedback, testing what you're building, giving you feedback on it, helping you decide between two different landing pages or those. That's real work. Your team does that work. You know what? You can bring your best customers in to help you do that collaborative work, and the format that you want to do that in is usually a private community. So these early super fans, these people that come in pre-launch and help you create your community, they really do co-create the product. You can give them credit in your product credits. You can send them swag. You can thank them. Often we will pay people for targeted feedback sessions. There's a lot of ways to compensate. But this core exchange of value is one of the most productive and satisfying relationships that exist in game development and product development. The devs get insights they couldn't get any other way. Especially people are well chosen in your community and they really represent who you want to listen to. And what do the members, what do the pre-launch community members get? They get insights. They get to hear about what's going on behind the scenes. They get to come behind the velvet rope, pull back the curtain and see how the sausage is made. And most importantly, they get to have impact. They get to feel like they matter, like they help shape the product, even in small ways. This is very empowering and one of the best ways to drive retention and engagement in a pre-launch community. Don't just listen to the feedback, show your community that you're listening and that their feedback had impact. People want a lot of things. Of course, everybody would like money and rewards and all those externals, but the satisfaction of knowing you had impact on a product that you care about is one of the most powerful and lasting emotional motivations that you can trigger in your customers. This small army of pre-launch community members can really turn into an associate sales and marketing army at launch, especially if you do it right. Make the best evangelists. They're very authentic and their interest comes from wanting other people to have the great experience they had. Their interest can also come from wanting their friends and associates to come in and make their own experience more social and more great. So when you're thinking about, I'm building something, should I set up a pre-launch community? How do I do that? Really up to creating a buzz at launch that includes this army of evangelists and empowering them with programs, swag, offers, all that stuff that makes them feel insider and really motivates them to get the word out and pull in their networks. This is one of the smartest and most cost-effective ways to market your product. So let's talk about what works and what doesn't work in community first design, because there's a lot of pre-launch communities that are dead in the water, that weren't effective, that didn't do what they were supposed to do. Perhaps you're a member of one of them. Perhaps you've seen that yourself. Have you? Tell me in the chat if you have. I sure have. I have clients who, with all the fanfare, set up a pre-launch community. Had one recently, a fintech client. Startup, really great startup. Set up the community, scoped it, got it all organized, sent out the invites, but then they didn't commit to having a feedback loop with the members and the dev team. They just got too busy. The community languished and it ended up a ghost town that harmed them more than it helped them. Now, some of that was just changing management, changing priorities, But the point stands that if you're going to set up a community, that's actually the easy part. The important and hard part is keeping it going and setting up those feedback loops. They don't have to be complicated. They just have to be consistent. So let's dig in. Start with your superfans. Those of you who have been with me, watch the videos here on Game Thinking TV, you know that superfans is shorthand for high value, high need early adopters. When you're building a pre-launch community, you want people in there that don't support your vision and your goals. You want the people in there that are true superfans, that really need what you're building, that are excited about it, that yesterday, that would not necessarily need money to evangelize it. They'll evangelize it because they care about it. Those people are not your everybody's. They're your beachhead. They're your superfans. You want to get them in there first. And you want to do outreach to them, maybe do some initial testing or interviews. And then you go, okay, well, I've done that. What do I do? Set up a community in a place they're comfortable with. Might be WhatsApp, Discord, Facebook, wherever people tend to gather and you know that you can communicate. Even if it's 10 or 20 people at first, that insider community with your super fans will give you the seed that you need to grow a healthy community. It also does something amazing that all that testing can't do. It delivers the super fans to each other. So they'll start talking to each other. And guess what? You get to eavesdrop because you're part of the community too. I have seen startup use this approach to get insights they couldn't get any other way. But there is a right way to do it, which I'll reveal to you in a moment. So step one of best practices for setting up a pre-launch community, don't invite everybody, slice off your best prospects, your early high need superfans. Bring them in and then grow from there. Ask them to invite colleagues. Grow it slowly from there. It's better to have a small, thriving, high-value community than a much larger community that's full of people that want something else. Let me tell you a story. I have a client, a gaming, and they're building a really innovative mobile game that's based on blockchain. So they pulled in an initial group of people, initial group of super fans, followed these rules, got them up to about 50 people, filtered them, started engaging with them. They had a weekly chat and a monthly contest. It was great, really working. Then they did a token offer, because for the reason all people do token offers. And a big flood of crypto speculators came in, people that are just, is this going to be the new hot token? I want to flip it. A big flood of those speculators came in that dwarfed their original community. What do you think happened? Well, they did buy the token, but they messed up the community. They wanted different things. They had different motivations. They wanted to chat about crypto speculation, not about the game. So they really had to do a reset and kind of pull off their original folks into a different channel. So be thoughtful about who you put. Not just about building up your numbers, it's about building up the relationships and the conversation and the excitement and the value you can get from those people, not just talking to you, but talking to each other. All right. The tool that we use to help you find and identify and leverage your superfans is the Superfan Funnel. You can hear about this on our channel, and if you're interested in putting this to work, you can sign up for our programs. That's a great way to 10x effectiveness. Here, this is pretty simple. Let me just take it apart for you. Let's say you go, okay, I think I know who my superfans are. I can send out a screener, or I can put up a fake landing page. There's things I can do to pull superfans in. Great. In they go. But you can do a screener, you can do interviews, you can filter them. And as you do that, you get research insights. We turn them into stories. Just think of them as little bundles of insights that immediately can impact your product, your development, the context around your product. And out of this funnel, after you've done this filtering, comes the hot core superfans that you know are the right people for you to listen to and work with. This is so key, because if you listen to the wrong people, you're going to build the wrong product. and you're going to fail. So another best practice for building a pre-launch community that actually works is telling customer journey. Don't just throw the community in there and say, okay, good, you're good. Really think about, how are we going to welcome people? Even if it's simple, what's our, and then most importantly, what is the habit building loop? What is going to bring people back? Why is someone who joins my community going to come back on day 21 or day 30? What brings them? Very often that's some sort of content or events programming, but that's something we can talk about more in a minute. One of the biggest mistakes that ambitious startup founders make is they don't create a community. They don't create a compelling journey. Now, the tool that we use, that again, you can learn a lot about here on the channel or go much deeper and get hands-on support applying this tool in our programs, is the Mastery Path tool. You'll see there's these 4 stages: discovery, onboarding, habit building, and mastery. And if there's one thing you remember from this, I want you to remember that even though it's incredibly important, especially at launch, so people don't drop off, even though discovery is incredibly important, people have to find out about it, right? Even though mastery is important, we love our game mechanics, we love to create a sense of progression. It's a great way to hook people and keep them coming back. All of that's important. None of it matters without a strong habit building loop, a strong learning loop. That's one experience. Why are people coming back? I can't tell you how many projects I've worked on, how many startups I've worked with, where they've really thought about progression. They, learned game mechanics and they love it. They've learned that onboarding is important. They've got beautiful onboarding. There's no reason to come back. This is the single most important thing. If you just get that right and not the other stuff, you've built a good foundation. So if you take away one thing, I want you to remember that that habit building learning loop is the to think about, scope out, and put into place in your community if you don't want a ghost town. Does that make sense? Which is related to designing that journey, is really designed from the get-go for re-engagement. What does that mean? It means that you want to make a community a habit. And to do that effectively, the best way is to think about the existing habits that your customer already has. The people that are going to come and join your community, what existing habits do they have? Do they tend to check in at night or on the weekends or maybe during their lunch break? Is being part of the community a relevant part of their job? Would they like bring other people from their job? Why would they be coming back? When in their life would they be coming back? And most importantly, what will they be stopping doing in order to participate in your community? Will they read less social media? Will they drop out of a different community? Really think about the shift that people will make to re-engage in your community. And the more you know about your customers, the better you'll be able to design this habit and design for re-engagement. So the tool that we use, and that you can use too for designing this way, the basic learning loop. This is a product design tool. It also works for community design. It works beautifully. I'll show you the details in a sec. There's some repeatable, pleasurable activity that people engage in. In a community, it might be reading and responding to messages. It might be attending a weekly dev check-in. There's a lot of data, repeatable, pleasurable activity. Think about it. What might that be for your product? There's also something that's missing from most habit skill building feedback. If you've read The Power of Habit or Hooked by Nirial, you'll see the behavior modification model, where for each action, that action with rewards or feedback, often external rewards. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that does burn people out. It tends to drive short-term engagement, not long. Where skill building feedback helps people turn into who they want to be. It helps them level up their skills. It helps them level up their knowledge. To think about for your application and for your community that you might want to build, your pre-launch community. What is it that people in that community want to get better at? Better at being a community leader? Do they want to get better at some skill they're in the community to learn? For example, many of the people in our game thinking community want to get dramatically better at innovating and finding product market fit with low fidelity techniques that are fast and cheap. That's something, perhaps you want that too. Common thing people want to get better at. So we support that with downloads and quizzes and events and feedback during the events and Q&As. And then of course, our program and more feedback. But all of that helps people build their skill, not just, here's some points, here's a badge. The progress and investment doesn't always have to be visible. It can actually happen under the sheets. Slack is a good example of that. But progress is some way for people to have a different experience that's better than when they started. A simple example of this in a community is to have contests. You can have contests that are regular, that people can win something, just like, hey, you won this contest. And that can be reflected in their permissions, in their profile. If you're running a Discord server, you can have people show progress by answering, although that will tend to get a lot of spam content. So that's a sword. There's a lot of different ways to get people more invested. And I want you to think, for your community, how can you drive deeper investment? What's the simplest way that's based on what people want to learn that could help them feel more invested on day 30 than they were on day 2 or 3? And the fourth one is cues and starts and stops the loop. There's going to be some cue or trigger, might be internal, like an emotion, might be situational, like work or taking the dog for a walk. Those are situational triggers that happen repeatedly. Might also be external, like leaving your shoes by the door to remind you to run, or notifications that. But some trigger is going to remind you to go do that pleasurable activity. And it's going to start the whole loop, but it's also going to end the whole loop. And so I want you to think about, well, what's going to bring people back? And what happens if they turn off their notifications? A lot of people say, oh, we'll just do notifications. Really think about their desires. Think about their situation. If you can hook into a situational trigger, like if you have a community that every time someone sits down to work and gets their cup of coffee and gets ready to go to work, maybe they check the community to see if there's something interesting. That would be an amazing trigger to embed. Or maybe when they get done on a Friday, they come because there's always a celebration. On Saturdays, there's a hangout or a VIP event or a dev chat. Think about if there's something you can do that gets people triggered to come back in a way that's as integrated into their life as possible. Okay. Why this works is that the best way to drive engagement over is personal transformation. If you have a habit of some sort that's just flat, that doesn't change, people tend to drop off. People want to engage in something that gets better over time as they get more skilled over time. That's what personal transformation is. And the healthiest communities have this built in. They have some sort of ascension path. Maybe people in your very active could become admins or hosts. They could co-host events with you. That's something that a lot of people really like, and that's a very simple community ascension path that's very common. Example of an ascension path. I mentioned my gaming client earlier who had this cool game with a lot of creativity, and they got overrun with all the crypto speculators. Well, one of the things they have is regular contests. I think it's every 2 weeks now. It was weekly for a while, for making things with their tools and then showing them off. People that objects and show them off. This is a Discord community, by the way. The dev invites them to become coaches and help out who are just getting started with these 3D modeling tools. And that's another kind of ascension path that's very natural to a community. And it helps people who have gone deep in whatever you have there to offer. It helps them stick around because now they have a more elevated position. They feel special, and the knowledge and skill they've gained, they can use it to help others. That is a very sticky loop to get into. So briefly, your discovery phase is all about visitors. It's about attracting and informing visitors. And the important thing there is this for me? Not get everybody in the funnel, it's get the right people in the funnel. Onboarding is about engaging newcomers, the people in the funnel that have said, yep, I want to try this. People want to feel welcome and they want to learn the ropes and they want to get value quickly. Nobody likes 10 screens of onboarding and 50 questions. So thinking about the quickest way you can get people involved, but let them, there's many ways to do this. Discord lets you create pretty sophisticated onboarding, so does Mighty Networks, but you don't even need that. A few emails or a couple of WhatsApp messages often are all you need. Re-engaging regulars is habit building. It might seem obvious, but it's actually worth remembering. This is about regulars, not newcomers. It's for your newcomers. But there's a point where a newcomer shifts into a regular. They learn the ropes. They know what to do. It's not their first time. Okay, now they're coming back. Re-engaging them is what habit building is all about. Usually, this is going to involve some kind of fresh content, fresh activities, or fresh challenges. Something that pulls them back. The content might be from other users, might be from you, might be from the devs, might be a special guest, might be a link to a really interesting article. There's a lot of ways to create fresh content for pulling people back. But this gets into community program. And so one of the things for you to think about, if you're thinking, yes, I want this, I want to set up this pre-launch community, is think about what kind of community programming you could do, what would be interesting, and then what you can commit to. Can you commit to weekly? How about every other week? Do you want to do events? Do you want to just things? I'll talk in a minute about one of the smartest things you can do if you're a developer. But habit building is really all about getting a hit. You come back there and you get a hit from the customer's point of view. And then there's mastery. Mastery is more of a vector than it is a place. Mastery is about earned, unlocked powers, access, status, the stuff I was talking about. Hello, you're a great contributor. I'm going to elevate you to co-host. I'm going to elevate you to, expert, that sort of thing. Mastery gives you the ability to keep the 2 to 5% of people who are like your best customers, your most dedicated, keep them engaged, give them something else to do. Sometimes it's an entirely different thing. Sometimes it's really on the same path. We're all familiar with this from games and from the mastery systems in games. But communities need mastery systems too, because one of the wonderful things about running a community is bubbling up talent and then having them become the stars and turning your members, turning your customers into stars within the community. It's fun, it's gratifying, they learn a lot, and it's very, very sticky. So here's a simple, powerful technique that's often overlooked. Your basic customer feedback loop. You don't need a community to do this. You can do this just with testing, but a community will make it go much better. The core activity in community feedback on something. The feedback is sharing what do we think about, does it make sense? Are we going to adopt it? What does the community think? It can be like a summary of a bunch of results. Investment, really, really, a lot of people skip this. Show your community the impact of their feedback. Tell them you mattered. This is what you said. And then re-engagement, it's all about getting more feedback. Come to this event and tell us what you think afterwards. It can be one of my clients, they're good at videos, 2-minute video clip each week of the devs talking about what they're doing, maybe showing a screen grab, right? And this is pre-launch. and they put it into their community because they want to get feedback. People think of what they're doing. They want to keep them engaged, but they also want to make decisions, and they want the voice of the user in their decision, as well as the voice of the devs and the team. Okay, story time, startup story time. I'm going to start by showing you a really badly broken feedback loop because I want you to be able to recognize it. Just gathering feedback doesn't do it. Whole loop work. It can backfire on you if you don't. Okay. So I was working with a wonderful startup a few years ago. They did a lot of things right, but boy, did they blow this one. So they wanted to drive more email signups for their SaaS product. So we decided to create an activity, and this activity went out in which is, hey, here's a cool puzzle to solve this puzzle. We hypothesized that many of our customers loved puzzles, and we were right. So that was the activity. Solve this puzzle. Can you solve this puzzle? Solve your puzzle, and then you enter your email in order to solve the puzzle. Okay, I think I can solve it. Enter your email. Great. Engagement, you get this weekly newsletter. So this was to drive more email signups. So here's what happened. Good, the puzzle looked like a good outreach, etc. But the team didn't want to put in the effort after someone had entered their email to let them enter the puzzle solution and see if they got it right. They just said, oh, that's too hard. That'll take too long. We got to get this out. Should be good enough just like this. Let me tell you what happened. We saw a 40% lift in people responding to the message. That was really exciting. People love that message. But once they saw that they couldn't get put the answer in, they weren't interested. We got less signups for the service than we usually did with our other campaigns. We got a lot of angry unsubscribes. We got messages. People were pissed. In retrospect, it seems so obvious, but we had big fights with the team about, do this. Why am I telling you the story? Because it's really important to understand the psychology of your customers. And if you're going to use some sort of engagement tactic, be it an event or a video or solving a puzzle, you need to think about what is going to make that person satisfied. What is going to make that loop feel like it's closed? So just leaving off that one thing, which is enter your puzzle solution, and we'll let you know if we got it right. Leaving that off made the whole loop worse than if we had never built it and we went back to some other techniques. Now, a smart technique would have been to put in the puzzle solution box and use that, but the team elected not to do it. They thought it was too complex. What we really got from that test, it's negative about puzzles. Puzzles could have been great if they'd been implemented properly, but they weren't. When you're doing your feedback loop, and a broken feedback loop will just trash your engagement. So now let's take a look at a different kind of loop, a well-oiled feedback loop, one that's really working, one that you can emulate. So this is a feedback loop that the gaming company I just told you about used, and every hit I've ever worked on, this is the feedback loop we used once we got into pre-beta or fully into our beta. We would create some sort of weekly update. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to have a weekly rhythm during beta if you want feedback, or even pre-beta. It's the difference between a ghost town and things being really lively. Then after we would get the feedback, always, we'd post a quick summary. Sometimes it would be, hey, we listened to all your comments and feedback on this video, and you're pretty evenly split, so we're going to do some more work. Or, hey, we listened this and you want this, so we're going to do that, etc. But you post a summary that says, hey, this is what you being the collective, think about this. Why is that so important? Talking to the community as a whole and showing the community data that represents them as a whole, say that the results of a poll or, a question like that, develops a sense of identity. People are like, oh, there's a we here. It's not just me. There's we. I'm part of this we. And if you can get people to identify with a community, again, that's one of the best hooks for long-term engagement. Then show impact. I talked earlier about how important that was. How do you show impact? Dev updates and changes to the product. If you've got a beta product and you're building it and changing it weekly and doing weekly or maybe 2-week sprint builds, then the feedback shows up right in the product. Post in your community and tell them, we have made this decision. It's coming in 2 weeks and it's because of your feedback. That's impact. It's very simple, but if you don't show your community members they're having an impact, they'll often drift away. And then to keep the cycle going, you're going to have something weekly, an update, a video, maybe a contest, maybe an event. By the way, it doesn't have to be the same thing all the time. But do that, you will be able to gather really valuable feedback and keep your community motivated and excited and ready to be your evangelists when the time is right. So think for yourself now. This presentation is for you because I want you to get a lot out of it. And right after this, we're going to shift into our AMA. What's your community feedback loop? Do you have any kind of feedback loop with your customers already? Do you want to build one? Have you been on a project that did this really well, or maybe did part of this? It didn't work. Think about how you can leverage this very simple but very powerful technique to increase your odds of success. All right. It's Q&A time. So thank you for listening to that. Oh my, looks like that went on for a while. I meant for that to be a short presentation. Got a little carried away. So I would love now to take all of your questions and really hear from you. What is it about community building that you're interested in? What is it about gamification or game design or product design you're wondering about? Do you have questions about the upcoming boot camp? We do have a few from our community, and I can start with those if we don't have any yet. So Scott, can you tell me here in the chat if we have any questions coming in from our YouTube community? While I'm waiting for that, I'm going to go ahead and that have come in previous from the Game Thinking Hub. All right, here we go. So James, how can we incentivize members to take on more responsibility and advance the community's objectives? That's a really good question. So there's a number of different ways to create incentives. You can certainly create external incentives that are points or financial, etc. But the way that I found most effective to incentivize people to take on responsibility is to model really good community leadership by having regular events, as I talked about before, regular chats, etc. And then during those events, chats, etc., notice who is stepping up, saying interesting things, asking interesting questions, giving you great answers. And I'll give those people the ability to play a leadership role. in the community. And also give those people the ability to go behind the scenes, chat with the devs, see what the devs are doing, look at a not yet released build and give feedback of the game. Those are intrinsic motivations. They're emotional. They really play to people's ego and sense of status and getting to hear a secret that other people don't hear. They also really target impact. And the best way to have an impact in a community is to be acknowledged for your creativity and for your leadership, and then do it in front of other people. So that ascension path is incredibly powerful. But even without it, you can have a weekly post where you acknowledge people that have had, said great comments. Just do it publicly. So the essence of this is one of the best ways to get people to take on responsibility is to call them out and praise them and shine a spotlight on them publicly when the other members can see it. This really motivates them to keep going. All right. So Vitali, how do we separate casual chat and support requests from complaints that are without merit and trolling? Whoa, that's community management, and that's hard. And it gets harder if you're in a place like Discord and you have an open community. So here's a few things. One, strongly recommend a private community versus a public one. When you get bigger, you can have a public one, but when you're really running a beta, you're doing pre-launch, if anyone's trolling and complaining, you can just kick them out. You can, try to engage and answer them, but you be full of trolls, that's going to wreck it. That was the problem with the community I told you about earlier, where all these crypto speculators came in and they were complaining, and when's the next drop? And my token price didn't go up enough. I'm frustrated. You don't want any of that. They don't belong there. So step one is separate the people that don't belong there. And the other way to separate casual chat and support requests, one of the best techniques I've ever seen in any community is to have a channel called Free for All and just funnel everybody that wants to troll, that wants to complain. Don't just stomp down on it, channel it into a special place, create a corner of the community for it that's opt-in so everybody doesn't have to see it, and just let them sort of talk to their own echo chamber there, and don't give it a lot of attention. What you give attention will thrive. So if you like people asking for support requests, if you like that they're doing casual chat, in there, like their comments, comment on it, put an emoji on it, give it attention, and you will see that will thrive. But if you're really having trouble with complaints and you don't want to kick those people out, isolate them into a particular corner, and that should work really well.
Okay, we have questions in the chat.
Excellent. So I'll take those questions, and then we'll come back to these others if there's time. So yes, tell me the questions in the chat.
Okay, Tiago asks, how to build a community around a sensitive topic like personal finances.
Yeah, my fintech client I told you about, that was exactly what they tried to do. So there's a lot of nuance in exactly how you're going to do it, depending on who the sponsor is and who the people are in it. But if you want to get better at personal finance, it's to have some core texts that everybody is sharing and learning from. I know that Ramit Sethi has a book called I Can Teach You to Be Rich, and he's got a whole big community built around that. And that seems to be really thriving. He's also got a number of courses. And it's really built around the canon, in a sense, the core text. One of the ways to do that is to have some sort of shared context that everybody can then discuss. You could also do it as a book club, right? A reading club, a personal finance reading club where we read a book a month and talk about it, something like that. In terms of the sensitivity of it, one of the key decisions about your community is, are you going to do it with real names, pseudonyms, or let it be anonymous. Let me define that really quick. Anonymity means that anybody can create an ID and it can't be traced to them. They can be anonymous. They can call themselves Shitposter 101 and do whatever they want. And accountability, either short term or long term. That's actually what anonymity is. Pseudonymity, a pseudonym, is a like Shitposter 101, but it's attached to a real person and it's consistent over time, meaning that there's reputation that accrues to that person, even if it's a pretend name. Real names is similar, except you use your real name and there's a reputation that accrues to your ID. So for a sensitive topic, pseudonymity can work really well, meaning you can say to people, we recommend that you pick a name, pick an online name, identity. If you get to know people privately, you can reveal your identity, but so we can all talk freely here, let's pick a pretend name. But what you don't want is anonymity. You don't want no reputation. Why? That results in terrible behavior and it's hard to build relationships. And if you're not going to build relationships, why are you running a community? So one of the best ways to manage that sensitive nature, there are also communities of people with chronic illness who might not want to reveal that to their employer, for instance, or prospective employer. And similarly, you can use pseudonyms for that. And one of the best ways to navigate that. Are there more questions, Scott?
There are. Nishant asks, we've been getting signups from Twitter, but they don't share any feedback due to promote open communication in the community. I know that's a little vague. I've asked her for, or Nishant for
Let's
a little
come
more.
back to that. But if
detail.
you want to share the guest link with Nishant.
Yeah, one more. Breakaway Media says,
go ahead.
I'm told that a vibrant Discord set of channels is important for community building in my ecosystem. What are good practices for applying these best practices to Discord?
So we have a Discord teardown we did recently with a world-class expert who runs gaming communities currently for Will Wright's company. He used to work for Blizzard, makers of World of Warcraft. That's his name is Josh. And he had some amazing sophisticated best practices. And we're going to be publishing that Discord teardown probably in September. You get immediate access to it and to our whole vault of expert talks. So I'll just say that. But here's a few. So I'd say make sure you're subscribed to Game Thinking TV and you're going to get some really great techniques about Discord. But let me give starter tips, okay, about setting up a Discord with channels that works. 1, don't set up too many channels. People often will start, and I do this too. I do it every damn time, and then I kick myself. You set up your community, you're started, you have a taxonomy in your mind. We'll talk about this and this here, and then we've got these key topics, boom, boom, boom. And you've got all these channels. People don't know where to go. So start with the fewest number of channels possible and grow from there. Tip number 1. Tip number 2, have either a part-time or a full-time community manager. It can be part-time someone on your team. It can be you hire someone. But especially in Discord, you're going to need somebody to manage everything. And knowing who to talk to, knowing who to turn to, knowing that if somebody comes in and they're new and they say, hey, I'm new here, somebody at least is going to say, hey, and wave to them and send them an emoji. That's really important too. Just that soft touch. And then the third tip, and again, there's, dozens more, but I just want to get you started with it. The third tip is to make sure that you have some sort of regular rhythm for events, postings, videos, updates. I talked about that extensively today. And it's even more important in Discord because it's very easy for Discord to turn into a huge mess, as I'm sure you all know. It's a very noisy channel. Discord's challenging because it's hard to get identity right. It's hard to know who someone is. They can be one thing when you meet them in email and totally different in Discord. Once you've sorted that, you can once a month, once a week, every 2 weeks, something like that. Run a get to know you event. Maybe once a month, run a newcomer welcome event, right? Have the developers come in and chat. Have an event where the developers come in and answer questions, ideally with a presentation first, showing some cool stuff. If you do that regularly, your Discord will have this rhythm, and one of the things that's going to happen is that you're going to have more of the conversation be what you want it to be versus all over the place. And I have to sneak it in, one more quick one. Don't hesitate to kick people out and ban them if they suck. There's so much spam in Discord. There's so many people that want to come in and pump their bags and sell their coin and trick people. It's really tricky in Discord. So make sure that community manager, whoever's moderating it, is not afraid to kick people out. Now, again, what's tricky in Discord is they can just come back in with a different ID. But at least you'll be showing everybody in your channel that you don't tolerate bad behavior. And that's one of the things about communities. This goes for Discord especially, but all other ones. If you don't show that there's leadership and that there's some sort of culture and that it will be defended if it's attacked, people will trash your community culture. They'll do whatever they want. It'll be a free-for-all. But if somebody behaves badly and they get kicked out and you talk about it publicly and you let people know that it happened, and if somebody say, sling some slurs or something like that, if you call them out, tell them that's not acceptable here, you're gone, and everybody sees that, you haven't just affected that person, you've affected the culture of the whole community. So there's some starter. Want more tips on how to do this? Join our boot camp. It's our quickest program for learning this stuff, and you get access to our whole backlog of interviews. By the way, love these questions. Any more questions, Scott?
Yeah, Dylan asks, well, first of all, Nishant, I gave Nishant the link, but hasn't joined. Nishant says they want
question again, and we'll see if we can answer it.
Yeah, it's they're getting signups on Twitter, but aren't getting feedback, and it's about a very early beta.
Yeah, I need to know. You're getting signups on Twitter, but what's the outreach and them to go? I need to understand the funnel in order to answer that question correctly. Is it that people aren't active, or that they're not joining the community once I'm not quite sure what the is.
Is there a place for them to go? Says.
Okay, so are there any other questions, Scott?
Sure. Dylan asks, how do you keep an early community engaged if we are doing a major update that is taking 2 months and we don't have development updates for them to play test?
That's a hard one, and that's what my gaming client is going through right now. So pretty much the stuff I mentioned before. First of all, I want to acknowledge that when it's a long time till an update and people are there because they're excited about the updates, they can get frustrated. What I've seen work are all the things I've talked about before, all bundled around a weekly update. A quick video from the dev is this week we're heads down doing blah, blah, blah. and then maybe what do you think about this? Just a quick dev update can do wonders, especially a quick little video. You just shoot it with your iPhone, right? You can create a contest that leads up to the release. Like, let's say you have a release coming in 2 months. If you have a creative community where you ask them to get their drawings or their writings or their something. So that's another thing I've seen work for the people that have that kind of community. You can also share with them interesting topics in your space. So again, you've got 2 months, this update's coming, you wish it wouldn't take so long. Well, you're going to be in some space where there's other things going on, right? So another thing you can do is find an interesting article in Business Week or Forbes or, VR Daily or wherever it is that you like to read, or an interesting video, right? And share it with them. And then, and say, what do you think about the video? And then you can schedule a live chat the next day, or you can just share the video and get people chatting in the comments. But when you can't get them to play the thing itself, if they can either create something, even if it's very simple, or respond to something that they learned from, that can really help them to stay engaged and stay active, as well as creating more content through those customer interactions for your whole community to consume. It takes work and it can be frustrating, but it does work, especially when you set up that regular rhythm. All right, so we're at our time. Are there any more questions, Scott?
Now,
Great.
the
Thank
link,
you. Yes?
we're
Let's
not,
not
the link, yeah.
So
Let's
just not worry
let's
about
talk
that.
to Nishant separately. You can talk to us in the hub.
That sounds good. So go ahead, turn off your audio, Scott.
No. So no more questions.
Okay, turn off your audio, please, Scott. Great. All right, so that's it for today. This is great. Thank you so much for joining us, learning about community. And I know that Scott has shared the link to the boot camp in the chat. We run this boot camp quarterly. So if the timing is right for you, if you want to level up if you want a 10x product market fit and learn a proven system for running better, smarter experiments, please join us. I would love to work with you and support your success. Timing, stay in touch. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure to follow up. You can join the Game Thinking Hub as well if you want to get even more value. And perhaps sometime in the future, we'll be able to work together. In the event, it was been great hanging out today. You really made my morning. I hope you have a fabulous, I hope you have a fabulous day. And I'll look forward to seeing you soon here on Game Thinking TV, and hopefully seeing some of you in our Innovation Bootcamp. Doors close on Sunday, so make sure to grab your seat before then. Take care.